What are you going to do about those suckers? Are you going to prune them off, or are you going to leave them there? Well, there are times to leave them, and then there are times to take them off. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Hi everyone, welcome to Blue Heron Hill. I'm Sue. Today is the perfect day to do a little maintenance on my tomato plants. We have a little bit of an overcast day, no rain in sight unfortunately, but my tomato plants are getting a little bit bushy, which brings us to the topic of whether to prune them or not to prune them. There are different schools of thought on whether you should or you shouldn't. First of all, tomatoes are in two different categories. They're either determinate or indeterminate. Your tomatoes, when you buy them, should say on the packet of seed or on the seedling whether they are either a determinate or an indeterminate. Simply put, a determinate tomato is one that is, in its genetics, has a determined amount of height and fruit that it will set in its season. Conversely, an indeterminate tomato is one that will keep on going and won't stop until the frost or cold weather kills it, or some other malady. But a lot of people like indeterminates because they give you an explosion of fruit, many more fruit, whereas some determinants will give you 40, 50 fruit per plant. Indeterminates are up to 200 in a season if possible, if their conditions are correct. I mostly grow indeterminate. Most cherry tomatoes and things like that and grape tomatoes are indeterminate. I do have one variety, Celebrity, which is a determinate variety. I have grown another popular one is San Marzano. That's a determinate variety. Most of mine are indeterminate. With all of that said, now we can talk about what we need to do to keep these plants in tip-top shape. And one is pruning. A lot of people stand by the fact that they don't prune. Now, not pruning your tomato is really good. A determinate variety, I would not prune. I would prune only those leaves at the bottom, so the plant is raised off the soil level and for its health. Indeterminate, I like to prune them. I won't say that I prune every single plant, but I do grow them, and if you can see behind me on this trellis, and these plants are about close to 12, 13 inches apart, and that's close. So I don't want my tomato plants getting really bushy because they're on a flat panel, and if they're so bushy, they're going to come out into the row, and I'm going to need extra staking involved. Now, if you don't have a trellis that you plant your tomatoes on, and you have them in cages and such, go for it. Let them get a little bushy. That's fine. It's not going to do anything to hinder the growth of your actual fruits. Some people say pruning the tomatoes will result in larger fruit. I haven't done any experimentation on that. I haven't taken a tomato plant, let it fully bush out, and then compare it to the same type of tomato that I have pruned. Maybe I will someday, but I have a little method that I use most often because I grow them on trellises. Now, what pruning a tomato means is taking off the suckers. So let's get down and I'm going to show you the anatomy of a tomato plant, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about what a sucker is and how I prune them off. Now here's a tomato plant right here. I did prune off earlier in one of my earlier videos some of the lower leaves here. And as you come up the stalk, you will see, and this one's hard to see, but there is a little growth right there at the axis of this leaf and the main stem. That's called a sucker. Let's follow up the stem just a little bit more. And there you can see another one at the joint of the leaf and the stem. There's another sucker there. Coming a little bit further up, and there's the next leaf, and there is a bigger sucker. And that guy is going to have to go if I want this plant to continue upward. As you can see, it already has some blossoms and a fruit beginning to form. So some of these lower suckers are very easy to just take your fingers and just bend them off. These small ones, you can do that. When you get a larger one like this, I always use my pruners. It's important to have clean pruners, those that have been disinfected. I use alcohol. Some people use a diluted bleach solution. I just use alcohol. And you're just going to need to snip that right off. Now, any of your cuttings and stuff, usually I take these and I don't compost them. Tomatoes always harbor, it seems like they're always getting disease, and especially in the late part of the season. These tomatoes can be susceptible to, some fungal diseases and stuff like that. And so I take these cuttings and I just compost them out in the woods. Now, here's a tip. If you have room for more tomato plants, take this sucker, put it in water, and it will root, and it'll give you a nice tomato plant. It's exactly the same as this one here. So another thing for maintenance of the tomato plant, like I had said in another video, is you don't want your leaves touching the ground, because the ground can harbor disease, and the splash up of rain or however you water it, you don't want them splashing up and harming your tomato plant. So I am cutting off, again, more of these lower leaves because they seem to be in the area where they might be susceptible to some splash. Couple more. There you go. Now, one other thing in the maintenance department that I like to do with my tomatoes, and since they're on a trellis, is to tie them up. Give them some support. Even though a tomato is a vine, it doesn't really have tendrils that will latch onto something. So we have to do that for them ourselves. Let me show you what I use. This is what I use. This is a Velcro like tape. And you can just wrap it around. I'll show you. This very nicely goes right around your trellis and holds on nicely and helps in the upward growth of this tomato plant. So I'm going to be looking at all of my tomatoes and seeing who needs a little support, and time to prune off all of those suckers. So it's up to you whether you prune or you don't prune. My big thing is maintenance of your tomato plants, keeping them above the ground level. Don't let those lower leaves droop down and touch the floor, touch the soil area. You want airflow to prevent spread of disease. If you have some determinate varieties, I would tend not to prune them because your plant itself is doing what it has to do to produce the fruits that in its genetics say that it can produce. So make pruning as simple as you wish it to be, but you do have some options. So I've got a lot of plants to stake up, to prune some suckers off, make some decisions. I got my work cut out for me. The sun is out in full force now. It's getting a little bit warm, and it's time for me to get to work. So until the next time that we can go digging in the dirt, happy gardening. Bye.